So on the docket for today's training, we have some chest and triceps. Now, I've been dealing with some right shoulder pain for probably the last 5 to 6 weeks now. Not fun. So we're gonna be spending some time warming up my shoulders, stretching the pecs out, making sure that I'm in the best spot possible to train without agitating my shoulder, because I just can't afford to be taking time off from training to let my shoulder chill out. And so I'm just trying to be as proactive as I can with mobility, functionality, making sure that I'm not too tight or restricted in areas that I need to be loose in order to train effectively. I just ran a red light. Not too bad. Like, it was one of those like close ones where it's like, should I go? And I was just like, yeah, let's just go. But anyways, I'll see you at the gym. We're starting the workout out with some mobility and stretching. I am that old now where I have to do that, otherwise my body hurts. So this first exercise, or stretch if you will, is just a pec stretch, and it's a pretty lazy one. You don't have to exert too much energy. You just have to lay your arm flat. You want to apply a little bit of force into the ground so that your pec contracts, and then just bring your opposite side leg over your body and then turn away from the arm that you have stretched. And then you would just rinse and repeat that on both sides for a few rounds. Then we get into the cobra pose, which, super cool name, which is half the reason I'm doing it. The other half of the reason is because it stretches my abs, and it's an easy transition from our pec stretch that we just did. If you're looking to get deeper into the stretch, I would look up toward the ceiling and try and breathe through your diaphragm. Now we're getting into the active mobility portion of our warm-up. These rotational exercises are called CARs. In this case, we're working the scapula, so these are scapular CARs. You might be wondering what CARs stands for. It's an acronym that stands for Controlled Articular Rotations. Nobody says that, and so we call them CARs. So you see here, I elevate my scapula, then I protract my shoulders, depress my scapula, and then I retract my shoulders. Then I reverse that same order for 2 to 3 sets with about 30 seconds of rest in between. Then we get into shoulder CARs, which is a rotational exercise specifically for the shoulder joint. We do this one arm at a time just to avoid the temptation to lift up in our chest, stretch our abdomen, arch in our back, which all are ways of cheating your range of motion here. We want all of the motion coming from the shoulder joint. You can see I start with an underhand position, and then I rotate my hand about midway through the exercise. I like to use my non-working arm to apply force into the inner part of my thigh because it helps stabilize the opposite side of my torso, which just helps keep everything locked in place so I'm not tempted to move it or involve it in the exercise. If you're wondering if your shoulders should be burning while you're doing this, yes, you'll probably get to that point, and that's a good thing. This is all part of a proper warm-up so that when we get to our weight training session, everything moves and glides like it should. So a good rule of thumb that I like to follow for people who are trying to build muscle, trying to minimize the risk for injury, I like doing a single joint movement first. So that's why we're on the machine pec fly here. We want to pre-exhaust the chest to some extent before we get into heavy compound movements. There's going to be a couple warm-up sets. We'll have a top set and then a back off set. The top set and the back off set will be as close to failure as we can get. And then from there, we'll move on to our first compound movement. Yep. The big things I'm focusing on here, I'm trying to keep my shoulder blades retracted slightly. You can see I'm lifting up in my chest, but I'm still bracing in my core. So I don't have a soft core. I'm making sure I'm keeping my abs contracted. So the shoulder blades and the scapula being pinned down help me to stabilize the top portion of my torso. The abs being braced stabilizes the bottom. The only thing that can really be the primary mover here is my pecs. Good warm-up set. Another thing that I really like about this particular machine fly is the resistance profile. So you'll notice at the bottom of this movement where the pecs are stretched, it's actually really forgiving on the shoulder. The weight drops off, and then it gets increasingly harder as you move through your range of motion. So where you're the strongest in the mid-range is also where a majority of the tension is. It drops off a little bit at the top, but the reason I like starting with this movement is because the shortened position is usually where you're weakest. And so I like to start with this movement where we can heavily load the mid-range and the shortened position at the top without all the carryover fatigue from other exercises. And then once we get further into the workout, we want to do things that load more of the lengthened position. The lengthened position is pretty strong for most muscle groups. You're gonna have a lot of strength in there, but that shortened position you'll lose access to as time goes on. So that's why we do this movement first. Now we get into the dumbbell incline press here. This movement, I'm gonna try and go a little conservative on, so don't judge me on my weights. This isn't my typical weights, but just trying to nurse the shoulder, get some productive reps in. Here we go. Same setup and positioning as the incline flies that we just did. Shoulder blades back slightly, chest is up, abs are braced, firm footing. You don't see me tapping or fidgeting around while I'm moving through my range of motion. And I'm controlling the directional change. This is gonna save your shoulders long term. Trust me. One thing I like to stress and emphasize in your training is logging what it is that you're doing. Not just your top sets, but everything leading up to it, because you can reference the same workout next week, and that shows you what you should be hitting, striving for, exceeding for the next week so that you can continue to progress. If you're not logging your training, you're just guessing. And so some weeks you might not feel like it, and if you don't have any accountability on paper for what needs to get done, you're gonna end up training like a soft bitch, and you're not gonna make progress. Yeah, maybe you burn a little bit of calories, but you don't drive the training stimulus that you need to make progress. And so you're just in here maintaining muscle, burning calories, and you can try again next week. Instead, log your training in between sets. What else do you gotta do? You're resting for anywhere from 90 seconds up to like 3 to 4 minutes. And I notice a lot of people, one of the biggest mistakes they make is they rush their sets. They go 60 seconds, 90 seconds, and they're into their next set already. Instead, take some time to log your training, reference what you did the last week, strategize how you're going to periodize the weight to get to your top working set, and then lock in. Up to 90s, we'll do one more big jump for our top set. So this is the set before the top set. If I blow my load early, I'm not gonna be able to perform the way that I need to for my top set. So I wanna leave reps in reserve. I don't wanna carry too much fatigue into my top set. So here we go. Nice controlled movement. Nice clean 10. The other thing that a lot of people forget to do is drink water while they're training. Drinking water while you're training, having a gallon like this, it's one of the easiest ways to get half a gallon of water in an hour workout. Most people won't get a gallon of water in a day. You can get half of a gallon down in a singular workout. It's one of the easiest tricks to get more water in, is just have your water with you. So in between sets, you're logging your training, you're drinking water, and with any extra time, I would stretch the muscle that you're training. So stretch, in this case, stretching my pecs so that I can get more blood flow. It leads to better range of motion. You don't need to stretch, do anything crazy, no long static holds, but just some brief stretching can go a really long way. So with that being said, we'll get into the next set here. Top working set here, 110 pounds. We'll see what we'll hit. I'd like to get at least 8 to 10. See how the shoulder holds up. Yes, sir. Ready? Yep. slow negative. We got our 8. And we go right into the drop set. About 50% of the weight, same amount of reps or more. 9. So we had the first 2 exercises that were incline based, so we were working more of the mid to upper chest. Now we're going to be doing body weight dips. The cool thing about doing dips at this point in the workout is we don't need to add a bunch of extra weight to make it difficult. My body weight will probably be enough. So we're going to be focusing on the lower part of the pecs now. You're going to see in my setup here how I position myself to lean forward a little bit instead of trying to stay upright. The more upright I am, the more it's going to work my triceps. The more I can lean forward and maintain that positioning, the more I'm going to involve my pecs. So let's get this first set going here. So you can see there how everything was tense. My legs weren't hanging or swinging in the wind as I'm doing the motion. I'm tensing my hips, my legs, so that nothing is swaying. Because all that swaying, it takes away from the muscle I'm trying to train, and it throws me off balance. And so I'm using my internal stability to keep me in the right spot as I'm moving through my active range of motion. Takes more energy to do, but it isolates your pecs more. And then we want to stretch a little bit in between sets here. So I'm going to have a staggered stance. I'm going to apply some force to get my chest to contract in that lengthened position. Once I find a place close to my end range, that's where I'm going to start. I'm going to breathe in, fill up my rib cage, and on the exhale, I'm going to try and just get a little bit more range of motion. And you might have to change your stance around, find what feels more stable for you. I think this side works better. Apply force, stretch, turn away, breathe, exhale, go a little deeper, breathe again, exhale, go a little deeper, and then rinse and repeat on the other side. Create tension, lengthen the pec, start breathing. A little bit farther into the stretch, breathe again. A little bit more. Keep flexing that pec. If you go too far, back off a little bit, recreate that tension, get back into the stretch. And then we're good. 1, 2. Now we're moving into triceps. We have only 2 movements for triceps since we get a lot of indirect work done from the pressing movements, so we don't need too much more volume to achieve the training stimulus we're looking for. We just need more direct work on the triceps. So this first movement here, Smith machine incline JM press. A lot of people are familiar with close grip bench press, and they typically are pressing like this. Their elbows are bowed out to the side like this, and their wrist starts to cave in here, and it's a lot of stress on the wrist. And so I'm going to show you a variation that I think involves the triceps just as much, if not more, than a close grip bench press, while saving your wrists in the process. So watch this setup here. I'm gonna have a shoulder width grip, and then I'm going to tuck my elbows in, let my elbows come forward, and then I'm going to extend very much like skull crusher, but we're running on a fixed bar path, focusing specifically on elbow extension. So I'm not thinking about pressing the weight. I'm thinking about extending my elbows to get my triceps to do a majority of the work. You can see we're carrying over quite a bit of fatigue already from the other movements. So again, we're probably not going to need that much weight to get the job done. But like I said, we do want to try and maximize the weight we use by taking adequate rest periods. So at a minimum, probably 2 minutes. At the higher end, probably 4. In that time, stretching, logging your training, drinking water. You shouldn't be dilly-dallying on your phone, trying to pass time and jump back into your set 60 seconds later. That's a really great way to come to the gym and not make progress. One other thing I encourage my athletes to do a lot is record their training footage, a lot like I'm doing here, so that we can look at how you're performing the movement. Because you might feel like you're in the right position, but then when you play it back, you can see some of the mistakes you might have made in your setup, or you might have gotten out of position throughout the exercise as you accumulated fatigue. It's very common. And so I just played back this last set and I saw that my grip was maybe a little too wide. And so on this set, I'm gonna make those adjustments and then I'm going to re-record and we're gonna see how much of a difference it makes in recruiting my triceps and getting what I want out of this exercise. So here we go, set 2. Little narrower grip this time. Yep. Same cues, internally rotate the elbows. Better. I felt it a little less in my chest, a little less in my shoulder, and I felt it more in my triceps. Just anchors the point home. Record your training footage, and if you have a coach, send it to your coach to get perspective and feedback on how you can improve. Because if you're not improving in the gym, you have the same old training stimulus, and at some point, it becomes insufficient to make the progress you want to make. So you want to try and improve your training efficiency as much as you can. I'm still learning how to get better at applying myself in the gym, positioning myself more optimally for the muscles I want to build and develop. And so don't ever think that you're above learning or that you're above feedback. I'm a professional bodybuilder that's been training for 16 years and I still have lots to learn. I know in a gym setting, it can be a little nerve-wracking. Other people are watching you. I don't want to seem like I'm self-absorbed or taking up space in the gym, but this is for educational purposes. This is for me getting better as an athlete. In all honesty, most people don't give a shit about you. They're not gonna be thinking about you while you're in the gym. They're doing their own thing. So I encourage you, if you feel a little nervous about recording yourself in a gym setting, you just gotta do it a little bit. Once you do it more and more, it's not that big of a deal. Especially when you're just recording one set. You pull out your tripod, you set it up, do the exercise, it's about a minute long, and then you're done. You captured your training footage. So we're talking about a 2-minute setup, and then you can put your tripod away and you can get on with the rest of your workout. It's not like you have your tripod out your whole workout like I'm doing in this workout here. You just have to pull it out, record, and then send it off to your coach or review the feedback yourself. Or if you have somebody else in the gym that can record the footage for you, that might be even a better idea. So here we go, final exercise. We're gonna be doing a single arm cable crossover extension. I'm gonna show you a nice finisher for this. So we'll start here and then we'll move to a variation that loads more of the lengthened position as I start to lose access to that shortened position like we talked about earlier in the workout. You can see here, I'm trying to keep a natural arm path. I don't want to face in and try and keep my arm really straight. I'm going at an angle that makes sense for my mechanics, my positioning, my shoulders. So I'm coming slightly across the body. Then, once we start to fatigue, We now load the lengthened portion. So now I'm gonna feel more of the tension back here, and the tension will drop off as I get to the fully extended position. So I can get some good loaded partials in the lengthened position to finish off my triceps. And then we just rinse and repeat on the other side. Scapula stays down, elbow toward the ground, extend across. And a little trick to engage more of the long head of your tricep in this position, when you extend, drag your elbow back behind you, and you're gonna feel the tension all the way up into your armpit where your long head of the tricep inserts. So extend and then drive the elbow back simultaneously. You'll get a much harder contraction in that shortened position. And then back to the starting position, drag the elbow. And then we turn in, load the lengthened position again, scapula stays down, extend. And the reason we want to keep our scapula down instead of having it hiked up like this is because up here, I can get a lot of extra muscles involved and make this really easy. But as soon as I pin my shoulder down, now it's only my tricep working. You can see how much harder it gets immediately. And the cool thing with having this as your final exercise and it being one arm at a time, you don't need to rest as long in between sets. So you can shorten your rest periods here at the end to get some metabolic work done, get that pump that we're looking for as the finisher for this workout. By the time I'm done, I'm already 60 seconds of rest in on the other arm. So I can basically jump right back in to the other side. So that's what we're gonna do here. Back into it, continuing to dig. Once I lose access to that shortened position, switch to the loaded lengthened position. You can see I got some of my range of motion back. And then there it goes. I lost it again. Loaded partials. Cooked. So now we're at the point where we check the pump. See how we're doing. I'll run through some poses for you guys so you can see what I'm looking like right now. I think that's gonna be it for today. My leg's gonna cramp up if I do too much more. But this is basically the end of chest and triceps. It was a good day overall. My shoulder held up really good. Now it's time to go home, get more food going, get a shower and get back to work.